Welcome back to the next installment of Setting Up your Student Manager. Previous video covered module and course registration setup so that when registration starts for a given learner, everything is in place. Just to recap, when you go to a qualification, you can then look at registrations. This will give you an overview of any registrations which have happened. You can then go to registration configuration status, and for example, for the learning program we set up, of the 5 modules we have linked, only 2 of them have groups and 3 are without groups. So we'd need to go in and look at our registration setup and look at the groups, and then you'd see that those groups are currently closed and only those 2 groups are available. So that's where the 2 is coming from. It's not per module, it's available groups. So we have these 2 groups here. So there's 4 of our modules that don't actually have groups. So that gave us an indication as to something being wrong. Okay, so what I want to do today is I want to look at managing a particular module or course. So when you come in and to my courses, and we're going to view the adding a group module. So now you'll see that it says module, all modules, adding a group. So we're looking at 2019 here. The first thing we're going to do is change that so that we can look at 2020. So we want to be able to manage them for 2020. So we have the detail of the particular module or course, and then we have the different campuses would be listed over there. So we only have one campus, which is the online campus, and we have these 2 groups. Now what we want to do is, because we have these 2 groups, we want to give certain staff access to be able to work in these groups. So at the moment, there are no staff. So what we'll do is, I don't want to add multiple, I only want to add 1. So I'll click add, and then we're going to look for so we'll add our trainer. And now that our trainer has been added, we can now edit their permissions. So I'm going to give them complete access. This group ends on the 31st of the 12th. So I'm going to say that their permissions will also end on the 31st of the 12th. So now you can see that this person can see the group, has all of that, and their permissions end on that date. So that's the first part, is adding staff to be able to access that particular module or group. Learning materials, this is only if you have set learning material for a given course that they need to access somewhere else, and you can list the costs for them as well for that particular learning material. The resources section are resources for that particular group for a given staff member. So you have resources at the group level for staff, and then you also have resources at the module level for staff as well, or the module or the course level for staff as well. So we'll ignore resources, but you can add different files and different things for staff to use in order to teach that particular group. So this, let's say that this was, even though this is an online campus, let's say that this was your on-site group. and let's say, so you managed your online learners and your on-site learners within the groups instead of on different campuses, like we've done here with the online campus. So let's say that this was an online group, and that was and this group here for May is the on-site group. So what you could then do is, because they may be getting taught the same stuff in a different way, you could put the resources to teach that particular group, for that given trainer, because they may be swapping out someone else. Okay, the next thing for staff is for them to be able to pull reports for the group that they're responsible for. So after giving them obviously some report access rights, you've given them access to be able to see the groups that they link to, you've then linked them to the group down here. You can now click on reports and pull all these reports. So you can pull a class list, student performance, assessment results, lecture attendance summary, attendance detail, create an event attendance register according to the learners who've registered, and create a contact list. So that would be the first part of getting your staff to know that they can pull those reports. Obviously, the reports can only be pulled if there's data. For example, you can't pull a class list if, no students have been registered for the course. Right? And if you have no assessments, you can't then pull assessment results. Okay. So for this part of the setup, what we're going to focus on is the main part of setup. We have a separate article related to dealing with e-learning. So for now, we're just going to work with assessments. So staff have been linked to a given course, and they can now, you've given them the appropriate control in terms of what they can and can't capture and access. So now we're going to add an assessment. Under assessments, you then choose the group that you're working with. By default, the list of assessments tab will load. You can then click on options, add assessment. We'll leave it as that. I'm going to say that this is a practical, and it's going to be practical. And it's P. No time limit. It's going to say it's out of 100. We're going to make this weighting 50. If you want something to be calculated, it has to have a weighting. And I'm going to let them do this test on the 13th. Okay, we're not going to add it to this other group. So if we have multiple groups running at the same time, we can then add the assessment to the other groups. This is not going to be an online assessment, so we're not going to allow any uploads. Now I save. So that assessment is now available. So if I add an assessment, I'm going to now add a theory one. And I'm going to call this theory. Just going to make that 50, and I'm going to say that they can do the theory in 2 weeks' time. Not going to add it to the other group. Okay. That red line that's at the top has disappeared because the weighting is now add up to 100. So now we have an assessment set up for these students. Obviously, we can't view anything because we haven't registered any students. So that is something that would have to be done next. Once the students are registered, they'll automatically then be linked to these assessments. So for a given assessment, you have multiple attempts, and for a given attempt, you can then go in and capture the marks. So now when you click capture marks, they'll say that there's no students assigned, so you can't capture. For me as well, because I added the trainer, it says to me that I don't have access rights to capture results anyway, because I'm not added as their staff member. So only that particular trainer is allowed to capture marks here. So that's how simple it is. You can go in, capture marks, enter the marks, and then save. And then if you want the system to actually save the result and learners to be able to see it, you can come here and publish results. And then if you don't want them to see it, you can unpublish results. So as a start, that would be the main thing to get set up for staff, so that staff are able to come in, add assessments, capture marks and save them, and if need be, they can publish. Also, they can work on the groups tab, expand the group that they have access to, and if all the results are published, then they can pull the assessment results report. Okay, so that is just an overview of working within a particular course as the minimum setup for staff to be able to capture results. Obviously, students need to be registered. In our help document section, there is an article on registering students, so you will be able to see how to deal with registering students from there. Okay, thank you very much, and I hope you will join us for our next installment in the series.